Okay, welcome to this channel. My name is Ariana, and today I want to talk to you about sensuality and specifically about the way that I found sensuality to be such a healing practice. So, the background that I come from is that I was doing a dance education, studying to be a dance teacher, and in my last year, I discovered tantra, and I also had a bit of my own crisis where everything was kind of upside down. So I was very open to learning anything that would benefit me, really. And there was also a sense of letting go of all those old things that I thought that would work out in life or could make sense to me. So from that space, when I started to teach, I wanted to combine all these beautiful things that I'd learned from Tantra and also in dance. And actually, simultaneously, my last year, I was also studying or interning at a pole dance school. And at this pole dance school, there was also lap dance and there was also sexy pole. So not every dance school has sexy pole. Sometimes it's more sporty, but this dance school also had those options. And I loved that so much. I remember just feeling so free and so welcomed in that space. And like this side of me that wanted to be sensual, like finally was safe enough to come to the surface and to really play. But what I also discovered was that it was not that way for many women. So I definitely believe that everyone has this side inside of them. And I have this one very prevalent memory of a student that was in some kind of shutdown. So it was very minor, but I could see that she was kind of closing off her body, and that there was a sense of unsafety within her from past experiences, most likely. And I really longed to create a space where we could play with sensuality, where we could play with lap dance and all those kinds of things, but also add that perspective of tantra and also a perspective of attunement and sensitivity, which felt very natural to me. That when you interact with someone in this manner, um, there is a level of authenticity, of really being there, of really connecting to the other, and really creating this sacred, intimate moment together. So, yeah, that's how I discovered or how I started to develop sensual dance, where I combined all these things, where I would have women go into a breathing technique first, and then start to do some yoni yoga, and then opening the spine, and then going into movement, going into other things. And during my sensual dance, in the beginning, I was just experimenting so much. I was combining all these things that I'd learned, and I also experimented with lap dance. And from that, conscious lap dance was born. So during conscious lap dance, I finally get this chance to show, and I've only had women so far at the conscious lap dance. So to show women in this case, how lap dance can be an act of self-pleasure, how you can do that just for you, how you can touch another person but really activate your own hands in such a way that it brings you pleasure. So yeah, I'm very excited about this. I'm currently filming 2 projects where I'm going to be conveying this conscious lap dance and giving you or anyone else the chance to follow that online without needing to go to a studio or interact with other people. So yeah, stay tuned for that one. But what I found out was how healing sensuality is. So I was just playing with the things that I loved and that I enjoyed, and I was a lot of times really touching on deep emotions and longings within people that were coming to my classes. So I created a blog on my website, which is about 7 ways sensuality heals. And Yeah, I'm just going to talk to you about that a bit now for the people that don't like to read. So, yeah, the first thing is that sense activation helps us connect to the current moment. So, whereas we usually have troubles from the past, worries about the future, but when we're in the body, when we're actually feeling our senses, feeling this hand on my shoulder, you drop into the body right here, right now. And that is something that we can cultivate, because usually there is a reason why someone doesn't want to be fully present. And it could be, in my case, sometimes a fear of overwhelm, and many times it's because something from the past is stuck and kind of drawing your energy towards that past event. So that kind of ties into the other point, is that when we're in the body right here, right now, we start to process. And sensuality is a way to retrain your body, that your body and your mind, this body mind connection, that it is enjoyable to be in the body right here, right now. So the reason why most of us live kind of from the mind, searching for distractions, is because there is something underneath the surface that has fear of being in the current moment. And these are basically always old events, usually from childhood, from when something was too overwhelming, too much to process. And then part of the energy gets stuck and kind of freezes in that. So a way that we can start to unthaw is by feeling into the body right here, right now. So a very common thing that I also experience myself is that when you try to drop in the body, when you try to connect to the senses of what you see right here, right now, what you hear, what you feel, many times this is boring for people, especially when they do this in the beginning. And this boredom in itself is also a defense mechanism. This busy mind drawing you away to go do something else and don't sit and feel. So it's very interesting when we start to combine this with sensuality. We're actually activating the senses and trying to retrain ourselves that there is also pleasure in being in the body. And the other thing that I definitely welcome, to me, sensuality is very emotional. I'm a very emotional being, and even my sexuality is deeply tied into my emotions. So when I can freely feel and experience, that's when there is sensuality. So that can also mean that there is grief or anger. Like anger is a very passionate energy. So all these emotions that are not usually shown freely or experienced freely actually have sensual power in them. And that's another thing we can tap into. And yeah, just to me, it's like learning to harness this very wild and potent energy. Ah, yeah. Sensuality as a practice for pleasure. Yeah, so I also have had students that have pain, for example. Imagine if you have chronic pain or an injury. So those are moments that it's usually not easy to be in the body. And it could very well be that you have a tendency to want to bring your attention somewhere else to not feel pain. So what we can also do when we're dealing with either traumas to the body or pain, I notice I'm trying to kind of look at the text at the same time, but I'm just going to ramble on this. So when we have an experience of the body not being pleasurable or certain parts not being pleasurable, a practice can be to find that 1 millimeter, that one speck on your body, in your body, that does feel pleasurable right now, and to draw the awareness there and to really create a meditation out of that. Where is pleasure in the body right now? Maybe it's only my pinky that can feel some kind of pleasure. And if you stay with that pleasure and you keep bringing your awareness there, you're actually going to start rewiring some patterns, and you will start searching for pleasure. And when you start searching for pleasure and you really meditate on that, you'll find that maybe there's another part slightly next to the finger that is also a little bit pleasurable, and you can start to expand that. And if you only manage to stay with pleasure for 3 seconds, then after that, trying to stay with pleasure for 4 seconds and really growing and harnessing that capacity. Because with our brains, we can do such amazing things just with our focus, with our belief. This is something that we know and that has been researched as well. Yeah, and it helps you to tap into your inner wisdom. So this is about intuition. We're so used to going throughout our lives and thinking about what we need to do, what should be done, that we're actually not used to listening on the inside. And that is what sensuality is to me. So if I'm talking to you right now, I'm just staring at this lens and looking at a computer screen, and this in essence doesn't need to be pleasurable at all. And if I have thoughts added to that, like, oh, what am I going to look like, sound like, then I decrease the pleasure immediately. I go up to the mind. But if I go into my body and I can feel kind of this buzzing sensation around my heart space, and then I can feel like, oh, there's certain ways that I can speak and breathe that bring me pleasure, then I'm totally turning that situation around into becoming a practice for self-pleasure, but also this seeking of where is my joy is also where I find my wisdom. So if I'm tuning into my body, what brings me joy? What do I want to do? What do I feel? Then I'm asking all the questions that are going to guide me towards my inner wisdom, my inner compass. And I would even go as far as to say that we're used to, I mean, definitely where I live in the Western world, used to repressing our urges. And that even starts at school. Like if you need to go to the bathroom, you have to raise your hand. You can't just go to the bathroom when you need to. And there are so many different ways that there's repression towards our bodily functions, shaming around our body, what it looks like, what it smells like, what it moves like, and then also the shaming around emotions, the shaming around sexuality. Like there's so many things, so many layers already telling us to repress our urges. And when we reverse that and we start to listen to those inner impulses, like, oh, I feel thirsty right now, I'm just gonna drink because that feels good to me, then you're really opening up this dialogue with your body to start to speak to you as well. And the more you listen to your body, the more it's going to start to communicate with you. So that's the great thing about really developing a practice, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a regiment, but really tuning into your body frequently, having that as an intention. Yeah. And also, yeah, this is definitely something that is healing for our nervous system. So when the body's still trapped in a defense mechanism, like maybe an alertness of always scanning the situation, an alertness of never quite being safe to sit down and relax, then sensuality is really a way that we can start to drop into the body and rewire, as I actually already said, rewire any dysregulation. And this takes time, of course, and it will become easier the more often you do it. So that's a lovely thing. And I also teach yoni yoga, and for example, in that case, we're also trying to create a pathway between the pelvis and what we're actually experiencing consciously. And the first class, for example, I very often have heard people say they don't feel anything. And it actually scares them, like, whoa, I'm not feeling anything down there. Is everything okay? Um, and then I know and I trust that after doing this for a month, a couple of months, sensitivity will start. And for some people, it could even be longer than that. For others, it's shorter. But with anything you do, especially when it's about creating new pathways, new ways of being, the more often you do it, the more easy it becomes, and it will become easier and easier to just drop into that space of feeling sensuality. Yeah. So this was just my little rambling about how sensuality really heals, and I wanted to share this because I've found so much kind of judgment or making smaller of the practice that is sensuality. So men, for example, thinking that it's about something erotic or something sexual, or women also looking at my classes and saying, oh well, that's not for me, that's really, and not understanding what the true practice is about. So what it can look like, and if you're on my Instagram, you probably see me dancing around in my underwear and high heels. That's a way it could look like. But it could also be me right now talking to you and feeling my own pleasure. This to me is already self-pleasure. This to me is already sensuality. So yeah, I hope this clarified something, or that you enjoyed listening to this. And yeah, just encouraging you to continue along. Yeah, really following your own pleasure, whether that brings you to my videos or brings you somewhere else.